So we're talking about what happens when we homeschooling parents get ready to graduate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, Shannon, for the people listening, once again, we are joined by Shannon Hayes, and there's an earlier episode, and you should go check that out. And we were like, oh, it's a long time since we have talked with Shannon. Let's connect with her, hear how life is and where she is. So first of all, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me back. I think about you often and wonder where you guys have hit next.
Yeah,
Yeah, we should have like a little map on the homepage.
yeah, we should. So
Such a
well,
genius
since we have talked, we have been
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
And you look just as happy as you did last time when you were newer to the road. You look like you're still enjoying it.
absolutely. I mean, just the last year, I cannot even recall. We have been 4 months in Mexico, three in the States, which was a weird place, wonderful to experience it.
So you did make it to the States.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, but only, I mean, we're so many people to visit, so many places to go. We are going back
Yeah.
actually in
So, but
February.
so we slow travel in a way where we live together with people, and that way you often come in and actually you're something else than a tourist. You see the
Yeah.
place, you go to their favorite places and explore how it is. And one of the big differences is the malls. If you go out to have visit a restaurant, you are sitting watching a parking lot often, it feels like.
Oh, I don't think you saw My America.
No,
I
no,
think
no.
next time we should come to your America. One thing we really need to do if we're going next time, we have to just buy a car
Yeah, to
because
get
there's
around.
a logistics problem being 6 people and 2 dogs and the trains, they will not take the dogs. And it was just too complicated. We always had to borrow cars or rent, and that was pretty expensive to rent cars. It was
Was it?
definitely out of our budget. Yeah, if you stay for 100 days, it adds up. So I think next time we should buy a car and get
Buy it in one
flexible.
place
Yeah.
and figure out to sell it
Well,
in.
you couldn't just do an extend. Well, we don't need to talk about the rental programs. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, that's very interesting. But I will say I don't think you saw My America.
No, we would
We
love
saw
to see
them.
that. We saw, for
The
example,
mall
Crystal
is
and
there
Kansas.
is a mall. It's an hour away, and I just we only go when we need to get our phones or computers repaired. Other than that, it's we kind of think of it as a garage for the technology, right? As an auto
Oh,
body shop for our
yeah.
technology. We just my daughters, in spite of, I'll tell you, I'm the kind of person who I dress in the dark. So I get up before light, and whatever's on the top next to my dresser, that's what I wear that day. And that's the extent of my fashion. And maybe that's because of that, my daughters became very, very into fashion. They both have sewing machines, and in spite of my life where I care very little about what I look like, they really do. And it took some adjusting as a parent to go, well, I thought that meant you were materialistic. I thought that meant you were shallow. And so it was a difficult but wonderful lesson for me to learn as my two daughters grew up caring about fashion, and they care about fashion as an artistic expression. And they say I gave them their fashion sense because I would take them thrift shopping when they needed clothes. We always just, went to Goodwill or Salvation Army, and I would let them try on whatever they wanted, and they could have whatever they wanted. And so in my own unwitting way, because I didn't care about clothing, they became these little fashion bugs. And so they were very interested in seeing a mall because I wouldn't take them there. And their understanding is the mall is where you go if you care about fashion. And they got there and they were horrified. They thought, from their eyes, the mall was a foreign experience for them. They would walk from shop to shop. When they first did this, actually they had an exchange student from Spain who wanted to go to the mall. So that's how they had their first entry into the mall. And they were horrified because in their eyes, there was no originality, there was no artistic expression, there was just sort of a dictate of this is what everyone is supposed to look like right now. And for them, it violated the artistic ideal, but it also violated what had become an ecological ideal as well, that fashion is about creating and repurposing. And it didn't, they just looked at stuff and they went, well, if this changes every, couple of weeks, where does it all go? And they ended up researching that a lot for their homeschooling. Where does this stuff go? What happens to it? And they think that it is the anti-fashion place. They have, so they've grown up and, they both have dress forms next to their sewing machines. My one daughter is into historical fashion, and she will talk to you about how the women's movement can be represented from the transition of a latch to a button to a zipper and what that meant socially and historically. And the other one is all about modern fashion. And, she'll sit there, the cafe is open every Saturdays. And sometimes she'll say, well, I need something new to wear for Saturday morning at the cafe. I'm going to design something right now. And she'll start, ripping and tearing, and they'll buy curtains from Goodwill and shred them up and turn them into something new. Or they'll take old bed sheets and turn them into kilts. I mean, you just never know what's going to come. But they did get a good fashion sense only from my neglect, I'm afraid, not from my intentional instruction.
We've actually talked quite a lot about it, or at least I have talked quite a lot about fashion with my children, because I think appearance matters. And I don't care a lot about fashion, and I don't care a lot about how I look, but I don't not care at all. The things I have picked because I like them. I feel comfortable. I feel the fabric is nice. I feel that it will regulate the temperature in a way that I like. I like a white shirt for the really hot Andalusian summer days, and I like a good woolen sweater here in the Scandinavian. We're not in Scandinavia. English, well, Nordic fall. So it's not whatever that is right next to my bed. It's something I chose. So we've just talked about how we navigate that field between, we don't care about fast fashion, we don't care about whatever color is central now or whatever, but on the other hand, we don't not care at all. And also because we're not more radical than you, but we are in a maybe slightly more display kind of way with our traveling lifestyle. It matters how we look when we arrive. If we arrive and we are a homeschooling, full-time traveling family of vegans that do not wear shoes, and then if it's also full of holes and ketchup stains and gloves, and it's just going to be too much for people to handle, and they will not meet us with an open mind. So especially after we left the life where we lived in a house, we've become a little more conservative, a little more, your clothes have to be clean. There can be no rips, no holes. You have to brush your hair twice a day. You have
Some
to
of us.
wash your face. Well, yeah. So it's just an interesting navigation, I find.
I find I have, since I was a teen, I have hated brands, and in some way I can look back at it and say maybe some of it came from jealousy inside my own little family. So my big brother was bullied in school. He still had red hair, freckles, everything. He didn't have glasses, but otherwise the things that the school children was like, oh, he looks different, let's bully him. And so my mom being on a budget with the clothes, she decided that he got a like Levi's jacket, you know, one of the really cool ones, and I got the cheap ass copy, and that made me aware that it was really weird. I thought that now my brother didn't get bullied as much because he had the right jacket on.
Yeah.
And I just started to really be against it. I took off, if I bought clothes, and there was a brand on, I took off the brand of the pocket in the bag, and I do not wear clothes with any branding on because I do not want to promote clothing brands that way unless they pay me loads of money, which I don't think they would. But it gave me this anti-branding feeling.
Well,
and it was, some of it was based on being jealous on my brother, but then that was what opened my eyes to why
it
are
is
they treating
interesting
him different now.
how we get to where we are. So the school that I went to was on the rural suburban fringe. Here, I'm very rural, but I was on the edge of a school district where fashion really mattered, but it was not fashion. It was exactly as you said, Jesper, it's the brand. And my mother bought me a pair of sneakers, and I thought they were a perfectly good pair of sneakers. But then I found out, like, the girls would say, well, they're not Reeboks. Your sneaker is a cheaper brand. And I just thought, oh, you have to be kidding me. You absolutely have to be kidding me. And there were a couple things that happened that were very formative. It was in my junior high school years. And I had a couple friends who spoke to me about the brand of my sneakers. And I just kind of dismissed it. And then a close friend took me aside to explain to me that I was repeating outfits. I had a white shirt that I liked very much, and I wore that white shirt frequently. And she took me aside and said, you can't repeat outfits that often. You're wearing that shirt too frequently.
Okay.
And I looked at her and I went, what? And then there was a girl who sat in front of me. Our names were alphabetically very close, so we were always seated next to each other. I hadn't become friends with her because I was in with a different friend group. And she came in one day with white, soft, brand new white shoes. And the boy at the desk next to her stepped on them and got black marks on her shoes. And everybody laughed. She began to cry. And I mean, I could cry right now thinking about this because it upset me so much that he stepped on her shoes and everyone laughed at her. And she and I had never spoken. And I was horrified, and I leaned forward and I put my hand on her and I said, you know, my mom uses this particular cleaner. I think it would take the stains out of your shoes. I think they'll clean up. And we just started talking, and we realized in every single class we were seated together because they were trying to enforce discipline. And they always put her in front of me because her last name was Hanford and my last name was Hayes. And so then we started talking and talking and talking, and we became great friends. She's still my friend to this day. But it was this moment where I was just so horrified that what I did was I got a pair of my mother had a pair of overalls that she had discarded. They were painter's overalls. And I realized, oh my goodness, these are so perfect because I can wear overalls and I can just put on any shirt that's clean and off I go. So I switched to a uniform. And to this day, I still have uniforms. I have certain shirts that wear over this and then a tank top. And then when I go, if I like the brand, if I like the shirt, I just rebuy it until it wears very thin and I have to throw it out and get the next one. But those girls defined my fashion because I just determined that I would just find whatever was loose and comfortable. And I really didn't care about brand. I became very angry, like you, Jesper, about how it was used for children. And I remember that girl's mother had, it was a big deal that she had new shoes. It was a really big deal that day. And it had been a big thing between her mom and her to get this to, it was in middle school where appearances started to matter. And it was so cruel and so awful that I never could let go of it. And so, yeah, I just adopted a uniform. Yeah. Uniform is good.
And it's also cruel and awful. And still to this day, these white shoes and white sneakers are part of the young people's fashion. And in our family, we say your feet are made to walk on. So we try to avoid shoes. But to the extent we do wear shoes, they have to be shoes for feet. And this idea that you have to keep your shoes in this state of perfect whiteness. How can you ever go on a hike? How can you ever play soccer? How can you ever climb a tree if your shoes are so important? That's,
but okay.
Keeping the children down in a weird way.
It is weird. But now we're going to come into where are we right now? Because my daughters are both in college now. So we're not homeschooling anymore. One daughter is doing college online and she's in the other room working at her coursework right now. And the other daughter has transitioned. She's going to school at the college down in town, 15 minutes away. And she has made some friends down there who are not from an agricultural background. And they were hanging out over the summer. And her friend is from an urban background from outside of New York City. And his shoes, he comes from a background where there's definitely not a lot of resources. He's Black and he doesn't have a lot of resources. And I give him a lot of credit that he spent time with Ula on our farm. But the question came up about the sneakers. And he looked down at his feet and we were like, we noticed your sneakers are very clean. And he's like, well, yeah, those are my kicks. They got to stay clean. And they were really, really important to him. And we ribbed him and teased him, come on, you got to get your feet wet. You got to go. And for him, those sneakers represented a very important object. And I still haven't fully understood it because this is not a materialistic person at all. This is a person who is a very caring, kind person, but he just says, where I come from, your kicks matter. And you got to take care of your kicks, and they're really expensive and they're very important. And I thought, I don't fully understand that, but I did understand enough to go, all right, this isn't for me to buy a pair of shoes, to be able to walk through the mud, to be able to, my life, obviously the life on the farm requires that you have to be able to get dirty. You really do. And this person had no contact with agriculture. So for him, the objective is to keep things, maybe more toward what you're saying. No, I have to be clean. I have to be really presentable. And the stress is on him in our culture, particularly as a young Black man in a very, very white, Republican-centered county that does have its racist backroads. For him, that was really important. So it is interesting how the culture that we come from, will define these attitudes that we have. We think, we think we're original in how we come to our belief, but look how much our different cultures have shaped our perspectives on these things.
And very often it's not just the thing, it's the way we handle the thing, our relation to the thing, the way it could be a white pair of sneakers that is it matters, my appearance matters. And it could be this oppression and this, you feel you're worth nothing, or that it's has to be the right brand, or it has this oppressive element. So it's always a question of how we approach these things, and rather than are you into fashion or not. If you like to express yourself through fashion, then it's a good thing. But if you feel like you're a brother that you'll be bullied and you can't get through the day because your tummy hurts and your brain is going like this and you have no friends and therefore you need the jacket, then it's not a good thing.
It's armor.
Yeah, it becomes like, yeah.
Yeah, and I have, when I look back now, I can see, oh, I've been so
You
cute.
envious.
I've been, no, but I've also been so cute in my youth when I'm like, I entered into the media industry, and oh, there's a lot of blazers and jackets and people trying to look like all professional. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be like that. So I had my silk shirts, but I still needed to appear to be able to be in that world.
Yeah.
So it was like shortly sleeved silk shirts, and it was kind of my fuck you all kind of, but still I'm fitting in. yeah, I'm fitting in. So it's good. When I look now, I'm like, and now I have a very, not today, but a very flowery period. Whenever I find a flowery shirt,
It's like someone on vacation.
yeah, But when I find one in a thrift shop, I'm like, oh, I want that. And part of me now is like, oh, should I at some point grow up? I'm turning 50. Should I try with that blazer and look like grown up at some point? But the fun thing is my boys, they look way more stylish than I do in my laid back stuff with flowers and stuff. And I'm looking at them now and saying, okay, it's actually kind of look good. I like it.
Yeah, the boys, they like a button up and a blazer and a nice pair of pants that look good.
Yeah.
Then they
And
don't
then
wear
they have
shoes so
them
much.
not too much shoes and very long hair. So it's a wonderful mix. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was it to finish homeschooling?
You know, I guess I haven't decided if we finished or not.
No.
We got a paper in the mail that said you're finished. But there's an interesting thing that happens here in the United States. Because I homeschooled my daughters, we only did the minimum required testing. And I don't believe in the standardized testing, and particularly since the daughter who was going to the mainstream college, the one who goes to online college, they didn't even care about exams or anything. And the one who's going to the in-person college, she has a visual learning disability. And to put her in a standardized test is to inflict extreme pain on her. So we didn't want to do it. And so if you are going to refuse, at least now in the United States, in some of these schools, you can refuse to take these tests. But if you do, and you're coming from a homeschool situation, they will place you in lower level classes once you start at college, because they feel that they have no proof that you can succeed. And in truth, I don't think that's a bad idea, to make sure that you're coming in at the level that they need you to be at. So we knew they were going to do that. So instead, for our last year, I didn't teach her at home. I enrolled her in those classes so that she had their own proof that she had done them. And so we started transitioning in her last year to college. And she started making friends and learning the campus and things like that. And now she's down there full time, but we have not taken, both of my daughters have really refused the conventional college load. The college that my older daughter goes to that's online, it is an adult ed university, and they really don't think you should take more than 3 classes. And because they believe you can't learn, and most of their students are balancing life and work. And so my daughter started in that, and she was able to continue working on the farm at the same time. And because as farmers, we are income eligible, she got a very heavy financial aid package. And then when she was able to continue working at the same time, she incurs no student debt whatsoever. And she's actually earning money while she goes to school. She's putting money into savings and building her personal wealth. So, and we noticed that with her, wow, it worked really well to be working and doing classwork. Like for her, that balance of the physical and the intellectual was really productive. And so our younger daughter, who is going to the more conventional setting, was able to say, you know what, I refuse to take this huge course load. That's unreasonable to me. You know, she now had that model set where she's, you know, the other kids are in much higher, they're taking many more classes. And she has said, you know what, I'm not going to learn anything if I do this. I am going to continue working on the farm as well. And I'm going to take a lower course load. And I want to enjoy myself. And so she took enough to be considered full-time, but the bare minimum. And which still to her is like, wow, that's a lot. But she's in her 4th week now. And it's really interesting. She goes to the farm every morning and does chores. And she gets to school around 11 o'clock and she finishes at 5 o'clock. And she too is continuing to collect a paycheck. So anyhow, one of the observations that we've had is, as we've sort of left our little bubble, is how the world still continues to expect our young people to have this extreme course load. And I can't help, my daughters they share our suspicions. Like, why do they expect us to work so hard? What are they training us for? In fact, my one daughter, who's in the conventional school, she has to take a class called Foundations for College Success. And she was complaining about this class on the way home. She said, they show us these slides, Mom, and they say, you should be studying for every 1 hour you're in class, you should be studying 3 hours. So if you do the math, you should be studying 40 hours and then going to class as well. And then they tell you, oh, and make sure you're getting lots of exercise, making time to eat properly, and taking time for yourself. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, they have no idea. They don't even know what they're saying. They don't mean it. They can't possibly mean it. If the course loads are what these course loads are, can they do the math of how many hours are in a week? It doesn't work.
It's really
so
funny.
They're very critical of that. And I have really appreciated that they have stayed living with us while they enter into this, because they need to come, you know, you could call me a helicopter parent or over controlling, if you will, but I have appreciated that they come back into our culture that says, no, working that hard is not acceptable. And if you are working that hard, something is wrong. Either someone is making an unrealistic demand or something's not working correctly for you. You should be enjoying your life. But I can't help but look at their peers and I ask the question, are we training our youth to not enjoy their lives? And if they are learning to not enjoy their lives, then they become complacent in a workforce. They accept how we want them to dress. They accept how many hours are supposed to be put in. And they go back into that grind. And that grind, once again, creates, it eats away at the sustainability of the planet. If you can't be happy, if you cannot be content, we talk about sustainability of the planet being that, you know, we have electric vehicles and solar panels, right? But the real sustainability comes from here. It comes from the heart, when people can be joyful, when they can know how to be without having responsibilities, when they can know how to make themselves happy, then they don't get on this treadmill. And I still feel like our educational systems, while they are teaching concepts of sustainability, recycling is important, and getting a fuel efficient car or an electric car is important, or using renewable energy is important, or, you know, trying to reduce packaging is important. Like, these are all little rules, but none of them are getting to that core of, if you are happy, then that means you can go out into the woods or into a park and feel joy watching children on a swing, or feel joy because you got really delicious, nourishing local food. If you can celebrate that, celebrate time with your friends, all the things that money can't buy, then you are really starting to key in on how we make the world more peaceful. And so I'm putting 2 children out into the world. They're engaging with the broader world in a different way now. And we're still trying to figure that out. Like, we're still learning the lessons. Oh, wow, they still believe this. And so it's interesting, but I'm grateful that they both chose higher education paths that permitted my husband and I and my parents to continue to have a role in their cultural foundation. They're not just leaving this and then getting thrown into this new existence where the value system is so radically different from what they come from. So I'm very fortunate. I'm fortunate that there is a college down the road. I'm fortunate that we have good Wi-Fi and that there's an online school that works. But so far for us, it's going very well, and we're not like the normal Americans incurring any academic schooling debt. We're still building our lives, and even though we don't work very hard, we're still, building our savings and paying the bills and eating well at night together. And but my home has a lot more visitors now. I've actually had to invest in a nightgown.
Yeah.
So we're going back to fashion because I just never know who's sleeping here at night, and I have to have a daily, because there's these other students now. There's all these kids who want good food, and they do like good food, and they're hungry. So I never know who's in my house, who needs to stay for the night. So I have a nightgown, and I have learned that I have to do a daily count about, I'm accepting reservations for dinner right now so that I know how much to cook.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
That was many interesting subjects. I think now the root question was, how does it feel to be done with homeschooling? And in a way, you're not done. It's just officially you're done. I remember this summer at the end of term, like 2 days before school was out in the country that we come from, I realized one of our kids was done.
Ooh.
I had to count on my fingers the years because we aren't in school. Yeah, Silke is done.
Yes, sorry.
No.
I forgot.
Right, and
yeah, but I forgot. Yeah.
So I told her, I think, hey, let's do the math. I think you're done. And then we had this very interesting. So tomorrow you're not in school, and you're not in school either.
Oh, she's not on.
So you're like not in school. This became so funny. And the funny thing is, nothing changed, basically. Our oldest son, who is now 18, when he was just about done with the 10 years of education that are mandatory where we come from, people started asking him, so what are you doing next year? And we've been traveling consecutively for 6 years now, a little more than that. And he was like, why are people asking me this question? What am I doing next year? Next year, I'm traveling and reading books and playing board games and having conversations, I suppose. It was like last year. So it's this arbitrary. I mean, for you, there's a little more in it because you've got the college thing. So there's a new situation. But for us, when our kids have gone from being officially homeschooled to being officially done with homeschooling, literally nothing happened.
Yeah.
It didn't change at all.
No.
And I think we are very grateful that our children also choose to stay home, which is stay traveling with us. So in America, there's very much this culture of leaving for college and living at the college. We don't really have that where we come from, but people move out fairly early in Scandinavia when they're 18 or 19 years old. Well, I'm just grateful that ours, well, the oldest one is, but the 2 others that are older, they are staying with us. I think they need a lot of years close to the core family. And
well, yeah, coming from an agricultural background, the tradition of moving out early is, so I'm from a culture that's less than 2% of the population. And the mainstream population tells us, they have to move out, but that is a surefire way to destroy the rest of the 2%. We are really reliant on everybody staying together. And not only that, but we're reliant on, we recognize economic value all across the 3 generations. My parents have a lot of savings, but they have a lot of savings because they had Bob and me working with them, and the girls are working with them. The girls are building up a lot of wealth because we are able to pay them, and they don't have to pay for a separate house, a separate, we provide the vehicles and everything that we need, because the family has an ethos of sharing everything. It's just all owned by the farm and everybody shares. And I see how that then magnifies wealth. So if you just want to talk about it from a pure financial pecuniary position, not having to duplicate possessions builds wealth, and being able to share everything builds wealth. And they have this idea of moving out, moving to a dorm room. Well, it's false independence. It's not real independence, because they're going into a situation where someone is still cooking the meals and someone is, still making things happen for them. But in our situation, they balance independence and responsibility. They still have to make decisions about the livestock. They have to make decisions about how their time is going to work. And because we all share resources, that's how it has to go. So, and we, because they're here, the farm stays more stable. And because we're all working together, the farm continues to grow. Because the farm continues to grow, everyone continues to build wealth. And we have houses and properties and things that we have acquired as a family together, so that if they choose to stay with it, they will not face any of those normal start of life expenditures. They will all just be part of the farm. So they don't, they don't have to worry about how they're going to get a roof over their head or food into their bellies. So it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
No, but it's very interesting, because it's one of my another thing I'm very annoyed about is how the families have been destroyed, when I look at it, by this idea that we should be 2 persons, individual, living in single generation housing, and not have a lot to do with our parents and siblings and all this, where I love the co-living, and I can see how farms are one of the last, is it called a bastion in English as well? To protect the family union and all that comes with it. We saw it also, the cultural differences. As Cecilia said, it's normal when we are in Denmark to move away when you're around 18, 19. And I moved away from home when I was like 20, 21. And that was late. People were a little like, oh, you're a little weird. Then we have lived and seen how life is in Spain, where you live at home until you're maybe 26, 27. And that's just super normal. And of course, the elastic band to the family gets longer. But you the core is there. The family is the core in many of them. It has started to crumble, of course, also in Spain. But it's nice to see it from a farm's perspective. Also, one of the places we love to co-live is with friends in Denmark who has a family farm. It is 3 generations living together as well, and it's just.
So we did that when we lived in Denmark.
We did that as well.
I do regret that we have separate houses. I mean, we're all close, and the girls are under the same roof with me. My parents are in a separate house, and my parents are aging now. In fact, while we've been talking, I've been getting blipped in because my mother had a very rough summer health-wise. And I've been trying to, deal with cardiologists and things like that. And even 6 miles away is difficult, but at the same time, it was pretty amazing that they went through what they went through. And because we were all together, Unfortunately, my mother had to live in a hospital for most of the summer, but my father had a family to come back to every night and a home cooked meal. And his life is about the animals and the land. Like he could not imagine continuing on this earth if he couldn't touch the land and touch animals and be with them. And so he never had to have, if we had followed the American culture, then the minute my mom got sick, and this has happened to many members of our extended family, the minute someone gets sick, then it all has to go. You have to sell everything. The land is in jeopardy, the culture, and all of the learning that comes with that, all of the knowledge that very few people have anymore goes. And my mom became ill, and my brother was able to work remotely from his job to go and be with my father in the hospital. And my father was able to turn to me and just say, please make everything happen. And everything continued because we were all here. And so they came back, and the farm is still there, and everything's still going on. We can't, the security of farmland is directly tied to the security of the family, and the security of the family is tied to those it's a husband and wife, or a couple's union. There's definitely a couple's union, whether whatever the gender preference is, it doesn't matter. It is a union of a pair, because it's very difficult to do on your own. And then those generations that have to work together. And I know I've taken bashing from people who say, yeah, well, what if you're not married, and what if you don't have children? And it's still a union of the generations that can keep it going. It's really important. So,
but if you really are not married and don't have children, the farms that we've been living at welcome people to come and join them at the farm. And then maybe you don't own it, maybe it's not your project, but you can still, I'm sure, be welcome to live at a farm, be part of that meaningful lifestyle, and contribute to it, so that you get up in the morning with a purposeful life. And this other thing that we touched upon, being joyful, living a life where you can feel that you have enough and that you're part of something that makes sense, which I think has become a very rare feeling, actually. And so no, we cannot all build a farm, because some of us don't have that union, but we can then, if we accept that, okay, I'm a single person and I'm not going to have children, maybe reach out and see if you can be part of something meaningful.
I have so many surrogate brothers, sisters, and children. I have had a lot in my lifetime. And so you are right about that. There's always somebody coming in. And that is very true. Sometimes I ponder, like, is it unjust? And I joke, well, I'm not in the richest 1%, but I am the richest 2%. Is it unjust that this is my culture and this is what I have? And then I'm, listening to you just now, I think, well, it's a double-edged sword. There's two ways to look at this. You could say it's unjust that I came into a lot of privilege. Now, I didn't come into extreme wealth that 1%er wealth, but I came into, I think, a more deeper wealth, a life. I was born into a family of farmers, raised by a family of farmers in a community of farmers, and the land has always been my birthright. That is unbelievable privilege. But there are many people who, as we've just said, would value this, but do not have that kind of capital to walk into this. And you are right that the doors are always open. And you are also right in that the capital and the relationships that make it possible may not always be there. But those people also can go do something else, and I cannot. like travel Europe and live,
Yeah.
So I think there are, it's something I ponder all the time, the astronomical wealth and privilege that I get. But on the other side, I don't get to leave the same way. So I have my fetters, I am very tied to something. And so then I think, okay, some of us are born with a foot in the soil at all times. And my spiritual job is to put food on the table. And to keep the land growing and healthy. And other people will come and go because they have different work that they have been called here to do. And so I think, though, to accept that there are different places, I have had to accept that I will never get to be the president of a college. I will never get to be in a presidential cabinet. I'm never going to be able to run for office or be the Secretary of Agriculture or, do any of these things, because one foot is always in the soil and putting food on the table. But I also feel deep peace and happiness with that too. Like, this is why I'm here. It's okay. And I think that gets back to, we're circling back around to an earlier part of our conversation where we said sustainability is in the happiness, and knowing our spiritual calling and what we're supposed to be doing, and not spending a lot of time being resentful about the things we aren't doing or that the life path has not offered us.
Oh yeah. I'm being reminded of an episode we recorded with Don Jacobs, also known as Four Arrows. I will link to it, but he talks about the enoughness, he calls it, which is when do you have enough, and can you be satisfied with enough? And these days, we make our money the way we do. I'm work with marketing and consult and help a lot of people. I only help nonprofits and good projects. I'm so blessed that I can choose only to do that. But sometimes when I get contacted by new people, I'm like, ooh, yes, I would really like to help, and I could earn more money, and more money is always nice. But I really also enjoy having time to doing my yoga in the morning. I really enjoy being around my wife and my kids. So there is this level of when enough, and I'm still working on the balance, because if you're an independent consultant, sometimes you get a new client, sometimes some fall off. So you always have a little overcapacity, but it's really a big challenge to say no, because but at the same time, I really love my time with my family.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate we did yoga together this morning, and it was just wonderful time spent together. So I'm practicing saying no more and looking at what we have and saying, it's good enough. It's nice. I like it.
In Redefining Rich, I don't know if you guys saw that book. There's a whole chapter on the power of no and saying no. And I've learned that I actually say no more than I say yes. But I've gotten very conscious about making that decision and not worrying about it. It's interesting. I know you're vegan, so this might be a difficult topic, but we have to be very careful on the farm about selection. So you have to, if an animal is dangerous, you cannot keep it on the farm. It has to go. If an animal is sick, if the animal is not able to grow, you cannot breed it back. It has to go off the farm. You have to, it's called, the word that we use in agriculture is cull. You have to always be culling, just as the vegetable farmer weeds out, thins the vegetables. You have to cull your livestock. You have to always be watching not to keep anything that could, if it can transmit a genetic disease, it has to go. And it's ruthless. It is absolutely ruthless. And it's probably the worst part of being a farmer, is that you have to choose between lives and how you're going to do this. But I have learned in business, I do the same thing. It is very easy as a farmer, particularly because it's hard to make a sale. Our food is much more expensive than what everybody else has. But I'm always, I have many different streams of income on the farm. There's the cafe, we have Airbnb, the vacation rentals, and then we have the food that we sell. And in all of them, someone is always asking, like, you're too expensive, or I want you to be open longer, or I want you to make an exception for what I do. And with the little dangling carrot in front of my nose, and if you do, I'll give you my business. And I have actually learned I have to call my customers too. I only want customers who are going to accept that I'm an honest person and I will not charge you money that I don't need. I'm just trying to make a living. And if you are going to come to me in any way and expect me to treat you as more important than myself, as more important than my family, or as less deserving of a livelihood, then you are culled. It's just that simple. I mean, I've learned to be polite about it. I've learned to say things like, I don't think I have what you're looking for. Or we have a policy where we don't do what you're asking for, and good luck finding what you need. But what I'm saying is, get the hell out of my business. I don't wish to work with you. And it has been kind of strange, because sometimes I've thought, oh my goodness, I'm the marketing face of my family's business. I'm making these decisions. Who do we work with and who don't we work with? But if somebody is going to be tyrannical because I have to, my worst Google review for my business is someone did a very bad review because I closed the cafe on the day they wanted to come to spend time with my family. Okay. And they were angry and they wrote a review. I've kept it up there because I thought, you should know that I'm going to do this. If you cannot accept that my business is not going to be available to you at all times, then we shouldn't be in a business relationship. And this summer was incredible because this is something I have done since I've come to the helm of the business. I have just said, okay, if this person is going to make me feel bad about what I have to do for a living, if this person is going to make me feel like I don't deserve things when I know I work very hard, then I'm going to very graciously find a way to get them to take their business someplace else. Just take your business, take your business, take your business. Never rude, but if that's what it is. This summer, my mother was very sick and she ended up having a stroke. She ended up having to go into a rehabilitation center. Then she ended up having like all kinds of health complications that were very difficult. My customers, for a while, she couldn't read and she couldn't see well. They showed up in the hospital to see her. They bought cards when I said she needs to be cheered up and she needs to be thinking about who people are to rebuild those connections. They filled our mailbox with bright, colorful cards and big block writing, wishing her well, reminding her of how they know us and who she is. When she was finally able to come back to the cafe, she couldn't walk from her seat to the bathroom without at least 3 or 4 people jumping up and hugging her. And that, to me, is why you cull, right? This is why you choose who you will do business with. It's not that these are not the richest people. These are not the people with the most money. These are the people with the most heart. I want to do business with the people with the most heart, and I will give of myself in every way possible, but they have to understand who we are and what we were about. And these are the people who, because we were going through a lot and it was very difficult, I also had one of my employees who broke his foot. So we were down my father, we were down an employee, we were working so hard. These customers all understood that we were doing our best. And the entire summer, every day I was met with compassion. And that compassion is what fueled me to keep going and to keep doing this. And that keeps the business whole. So that's why you say no. That's why you do. I have another meeting that I do have to.
Yeah.
Shannon, but we also wanted but it's such a nice talk, and I've been sitting thinking, oh, we should find a way to round up. Yeah. We should check in at a later point when months or half a year have passed, because we really love talking with you, Shannon.
And we should come.
We should also figure out to come.
Well, we'll work it out.
Thank you for your time today. It was wonderful.
And I will make sure to send it out to my newsletter too. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Lot of love. Bye.
Lots of love.
Lots of love.